Today, I want to talk about feedback and how to build a team that is consistently getting better and doing so in a productive manner. And I'm going to cover when and how to give feedback and why so many people seem to get this part of leadership wrong. And I'm also going to give you a crucial part of giving feedback that makes it a lot easier to give it. I spent almost 14 years in different leadership roles at Target. And one thing that company successfully normalized, at least that was my experience when I was there, was giving feedback. And if there's a Fortune 30 company that's worth more than $70 billion dollars and it's a practice that they emphasize, maybe we could say it's a little important. This is top of mind for me right now because a common problem that I hear within my network of real estate investing company owners is just owners complaining about a team not delivering like they want. And it's also something that I have been actively working on. And I want to share what's been working for me. So, who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I am a full time real estate investor. I did 40 deals last year, and I try and package all of my learnings for you so that you can make more money in your real estate business. So, the first thing that's important regarding feedback is just normalizing the practice of giving it. And the way that you normalize giving feedback is two things: you do it very frequently, and you consistently ask for feedback as the leader. And so, first, frequency. When I was at Target, we gave so much feedback at different parts of the year, and it was very formalized, this process of how we would give it. And we would have yearly annual reviews, which is relatively common. We would have quarterly check-ins that were formalized and we had to enter in our little workday system. We had monthly one-on-ones with our supervisor, and there were just constant communication and constant opportunities for leadership interaction. And how I do it now, for example, within my company, is I have weekly one on ones with my direct reports where we can talk about our weekly goals that have been established and the state and what needs to be done to improve. And during every weekly one on one, I'll ask my direct reports, hey, what's something that if you were the CEO last week, we would have done differently? Or maybe there was a specific situation that happened, and I might just ask them, hey, how would you have handled that differently as the CEO? And so by me asking my team constantly for feedback, I'm making an effort to normalize that culture and ensure that my team feels comfortable with the idea of giving and receiving feedback. The second thing with feedback is it's really important to deliver the feedback in a very timely manner. And so we want to reduce the amount of time between the behavior that warrants the feedback and the actual time that the feedback was given. And what I see very commonly is it seems like maybe, for example, there's an annual review process that you might have within your real estate business or some sort of time frame that you have solidified to give some performance feedback to your direct report, and you wait until that moment or that meeting to bucket all of the feedback together, and then you deliver all of that feedback during that time because that's what it's for. And you're giving them so much information all at the same time, it's going to be hard for any one behavior to change. And because there has been such a long time period between the actual behavior that happened and the time that you're giving the feedback, it just becomes much less effective. So I love Charlie Munger's thought process of how uh, he takes goals and he inverts them and says, okay, if I have this goal, the literal opposite of that is X. And if I want that to happen, here are all the things that would need to happen in order for the opposite of my goal to be achieved. So let's use that here for feedback. If we want to ensure that behaviors within our company are never changing, here are some things that we would do. We would extend the time between the behavior occurring and the feedback given to the longest amount of time as possible because we know that it's super uncomfortable to give it, and we can just let time go on and wait until maybe that annual review, and we'll just give them all the feedback at the annual review, and that makes me feel a little bit better, so we'll do that. Another thing to ensure that behaviors will never change is because we're waiting such a long time, let's make a list of like 20 to 30 different things that we want to give them feedback on, and let's bucket it all together because again, it's kind of uncomfortable to do it in the moment. So we'll just wait and we'll just give them all the feedback all at once. Another thing to do if we want to ensure that behaviors never change is to give the feedback while we're super emotional, right? So if something happens and it makes us upset or it makes us angry, then let's be sure that when our emotions are at the peak, that we deliver that feedback, when we're super angry or when we're very upset, because emotions tend to amplify effective communication, right? Another thing to do if we want to ensure that our behaviors never change, attack the person, not the behavior. And so if someone does something, be sure to speak about their character or talk about things that are actually going to make them personally feel bad as opposed to just stating the facts of the specific behavior at hand. And then the last thing to do if we want to ensure that behaviors will never change within a company is give feedback in front of a group, right? Because if feedback is given in front of a group, we're going to really make sure to set an example, and everyone's going to see this person just getting slammed, and that's going to be effective because it's going to scare everyone else in the room into making sure that everyone else doesn't make that same mistake. Right? So those would be all of the things that we would want to do if we want to virtually ensure that our behaviors never change. And what seems to be common is I see a lot of those things actually happening. I saw it at Target, and I see it now within the real estate industry. Hey y'all, quick interruption. Be nice, share Ryan Rice, tag me on your Instagram, share this episode, and I will try and respond to as many as I possibly can. And together we can help make leaders better. So here's an example of how not to give feedback. Hey, Johnny Setter, what's up with your call volume last week? Lately it just seems like you're showing up a little bit lazy. And, if you don't improve, we're going to have to talk about what's next for you at this company. Right? That would be a way to virtually change no behavior. We haven't given Setter Johnny any specific advice on what Johnny can do, and we attacked his character and just called him lazy. And we threatened him by saying, hey, we're going to have to talk about what's next. And so he's going to be absolutely terrified. And there's going to be a lot of uncertainty that he has, not only in what to do to get to improve, but we're going to scare him into, not knowing whether or not he's going to have a job in the future. And that's just not going to be a super effective culture. So let's reverse everything that we just talked about. Here's how to give effective feedback. First, you want to make sure to remove your emotions. I've never seen an example where somebody is really emotional and they communicate with lots of emotion and have that be effective and provide utility to a situation. What emotions are really good at is making someone feel bad or maybe saying something that you're going to regret later. So if you need to cool off before you have the conversation, delay the amount of time so that your emotions cool, and then give the feedback once your emotions have died down a bit. Second thing, give praise in public, but feedback in private. There's nothing more uncomfortable than someone in a group setting giving some sort of feedback to an individual when their peers or maybe additional leadership is around. It's just going to make the person completely feel like shit. And it's not going to provide them utility because all they're going to think about is how embarrassed that they are in front of everyone around them. And it's just not going to help change that behavior. And so be sure that when you're giving feedback, you do so in a private setting. The third thing in terms of giving effective feedback is to criticize the behavior, not the person. And so criticizing the individual can come across as an insult to the person, and criticizing the behavior helps ensure that we're not isolating the individual. We're not commenting on how lazy somebody is. We're not commenting or we're not insulting the individual, but we're just commenting on the specific behavior that was performed that needs the feedback. And so here's kind of a 3-step framework in terms of giving feedback that has really helped me. You state the facts, right? So X situation happens, we state the facts, and we do so in an unemotional manner. And then ask what they think. So, for example, hey, setter Johnny, last week, your call volume was 100 dials per day. And as you know, we've discussed this previously, the expectation is 200 dials a day. What do you think of that? Right? So you're going to state the facts and then you're going to ask what they think. And this is really useful because when you ask what they think, normally, if the expectation has been clearly communicated in the past, it's not going to be difficult for someone to see the gaps in that performance. And they're going to tell you that there needs to be improvement. And it makes the conversation a lot easier when they identify their own need to improve versus you trying to call that out. And so you ask what they think. And then the third thing is you just ask, hey, what needs to happen to maintain your 200 dials per day? And have them tell you what their plan is. And so that 3-step framework has been very useful for me, and it's been very effective in terms of giving feedback. You state the facts, ask what they think, and what needs to happen to get to an ideal state. And you can collaborate with them and give them some ideas if they're struggling to come up with something. And a crucial part of giving feedback, and I talked about this in the beginning, but something that is going to make giving feedback a lot easier for you is understanding where your employees want to go from a career perspective, right? So if you have setter Johnny on your team and Johnny has told you that, hey, eventually I'd like to become a closer, and actually eventually I'd really have a lot of interest in getting to sales director one day, then that makes giving feedback a lot easier because you can say, hey, setter Johnny, X situation happened. You've shared with me that you'd like to be a closer. And so I want to frame this feedback to you in terms of here's what a closer would have done. A closer would have done X, and I know that's where you want to go. And so understanding where everyone on your team wants to go can make the feedback a lot easier to give because you're doing so genuinely. You're actually trying to help them get them where it is that they want to go. And so making sure that every employee has a clear path, or at least that you understand as the leader what it is that they want from a bigger picture out of their career, can help frame that feedback in a way that is going to provide utility to them. A pro tip, by the way, something I have found very useful and just something tactical, is in my notes app for each of my direct reports, I'll keep like a little @agenda note for each of them. And if there are things or behaviors or bigger themes that I want to discuss with them, I'll make a note in each of their notes and it will remind me to talk about some of these bigger things. And so if you're finding yourself on the go constantly and you want to be sure that you're addressing something specific, I found that as kind of a quick tactic to ensure that I'm not going to forget to talk about something that's really important. So to recap, normalize the feedback culture and do so by giving it frequently and constantly asking for it. Give feedback in a timely manner. Do so in a private setting. And in terms of the actual tactical tips of when you go to give the feedback, 1, state the facts. 2, ask what they think. And 3, talk about the ideal state. And don't criticize the individual, criticize the actual behavior. And again, it's really helpful that useful tip that I share that makes giving feedback a lot easier. Understand where each of your employees want to go, because ultimately that is the whole purpose of you giving the feedback, is getting your employee to where it is that they actually want to go. So hope that was helpful. This was top of mind. It's something that I see that is constantly seems to be misunderstood or poorly executed on. And I hope some of those tips can make you a better leader and give feedback a little bit more effectively.